Deep space sensors across Earth's outer stations stopped sending data at the same moment. No explosion, no signal jam. Just empty lines where numbers should have been. The operators noticed within seconds, but by then it was already too late. Something had arrived. Far beyond the moon, 5 massive ships slid out of folded space. They were dark, sharp-edged, and shaped like blades meant to cut the stars themselves. Their hulls carried marks that many worlds feared. These ships belonged to the galaxy's elite hunters. They did not come to talk. Across human space, alarms began to sound. Military bases locked down, satellites shifted position. Old defense platforms, built during wars humans hoped never to fight again, powered up with stiff movements like tired giants waking from sleep. In a command room buried beneath layers of rock and steel, men and women stared at floating screens. The ships were larger than anything Earth had faced before. Faster, too. Every scan confirmed the same truth. The hunters had superior weapons, stronger shields, and experience hunting entire species. No one asked why they came. The answer was already known. Earth had been noticed. On the largest hunter ship, a tall figure stood before a wide viewing panel. His armor was pale gray, smooth and marked with symbols of past kills. His name was Koro. He had hunted across 12 systems and ended 3 intelligent races. His eyes, cold and focused, studied the small blue planet ahead. "So this is Earth," Koro said. Another hunter stepped forward. Smaller, thinner, with sharp movements. Scans show high population, primitive space weapons, no unified defense command. Koro gave a slow nod. Easy hunt. Laughter echoed through the command chamber. To the hunters, Earth looked loud, messy, and weak. Humans fought each other more than outsiders. That always made a species easy. "Send a mark," Koro ordered. A tight beam of energy fired from the lead ship and spread into a wide pulse. It carried a single message, translated into every known human language. "You have been chosen." On Earth, screens lit up everywhere. Cities. Bases. Civilian networks. The message appeared without warning. Panic spread fast. In the underground command room, a senior officer turned to another. "They marked us, like animals." A woman stood apart from the others. She was not in uniform. Her clothes were simple. Dark jacket. Boots worn thin at the edges. Her hair was tied back tight. Her name was Mara. "Woo." She watched the hunter ships with calm eyes. "They want fear first," she said quietly. The officer looked at her. "We have fleets." "We cannot win that way," Mara said. "Not yet." "Not like this." Silence followed her words. Everyone in the room knew she was right. Simulations had already run. Everyone ended the same. Earth burned. The leader of the council took a slow breath. "Then we do what we planned." Within the hour, Earth responded. Not with threats. Not with ships. A single small craft launched from a hidden base far from the main cities. It was old by space standards. No shining armor. No heavy weapons. Its engines burned steady and quiet as it moved toward the hunter fleet. On Koro's ship, alerts flashed. "A human vessel is approaching," a hunter said, confused. "Only one." Koro leaned closer to the display. The ship was small. Scarred. Its design was outdated by centuries. "They send one?" another hunter said. "Is this surrender?" "Open channel." The human ship sent no signal, no greeting. It continued forward, slow and direct. "Scan for weapons," Koro ordered. "Minimal energy signatures," came the reply. "No heavy arms detected." "They insult us," a hunter said. "They send trash." "Let it come." The small ship stopped at a safe distance. Still no message. Then, finally, a simple signal appeared on the hunter screen. A single human face. Female. Calm. "No fear. My name is Mara," she said. "I am from Earth." Koro studied her. "You are alone." "Yes." "You know why we are here." "Yes." "Then speak your surrender." Mara looked directly into the camera. "Earth does not surrender." The channel cut. Before Koro could speak, Mara's ship turned away and jumped to lightspeed, heading back toward Earth. The hunters stared in silence. Koro's smile faded. "Track her." "She jumped inside the planet's gravity range," a hunter said. "Hard to follow." "Begin the hunt." The hunter fleet moved forward. They did not fire. There was no need. The hunt had rules. They would land. They would chase. They would show the galaxy how prey worlds fall. Mara's ship re-entered Earth's atmosphere alone. It did not land at a base or city. It vanished into a storm-covered region far from satellites. Hours later, Hunter landing craft burned through the sky. They landed in groups, spreading across continents. Their gear scanned for life signs, energy use, and movement. They expected resistance. They found confusion. Human military units tried to engage. Missiles hit Hunter shields and vanished. Vehicles were torn apart. Soldiers retreated or died. The Hunters barely slowed. Pathetic, one Hunter said, standing over broken tanks. Coral watched the feeds from orbit. Everything went as expected. Then one feed cut out. No signal, an operator said. Probably terrain interference. Coral's eyes narrowed. Explain. Units report no enemy contact, the operator said, but they are not responding now. On the ground, a hunter squad moved through the ruins of an old city. Tall buildings leaned like broken teeth. Streets were cracked and empty. Their sensors showed movement ahead. Human detected, a hunter said. They advanced. A shadow moved between the buildings. A single figure. Mara. She ran, slow enough to be seen. The hunters followed, eager. She led them into a narrow street. The ground gave way beneath their feet. Old tunnels collapsed. 2 hunters fell and vanished under stone and dust. The others fired wildly. Energy beams cut through walls. Mara was gone. Moments later, a sharp sound echoed. A human weapon. Simple. Loud. One hunter fell as his armor cracked at a weak joint. The squad regrouped, shaken. This is wrong, one said. She is not running. Above, Cora watched more feeds fail. Find her, he ordered. Surround the planet if needed. But Mara was already moving. She did not fight head-on. She struck where the hunters felt safest. Supply drops vanished. Scouts disappeared. Signals grew weaker. Human command watched in silence. They did not guide her. They did not speak to her. They trusted her. A junior officer whispered, She's hunting them. The council leader replied, No, she's teaching them. On the hunter flagship, tension spread. This was supposed to be easy, one hunter said. Koro stood still, hands clasped behind his back. It still is. But doubt had entered his mind. We lost contact with Squad 9, no signs of battle. Far below, in the dark of a forest burned long ago, Mara rested for a moment. Her breath was steady. Her arm bled, but she wrapped it tight and moved on. She looked up at the sky, at the faint lights of ships she could not see but knew were there. Come closer, she whispered. In orbit, Koro gave the order that changed everything. All units, he said, full combat mode. The hunt begins now. Across Earth, the hunters powered up heavier weapons. Shields flared brighter. They stopped laughing, and for the first time since arriving, they felt something new. Uncertainty. The hunters spread across Earth like shadows, moving faster than the human eye could follow. They landed in forests, deserts, mountains, and ruined cities. Each group carried advanced scanners, weapons designed to pierce armor, and strategies tested across countless worlds. They expected humans to run, to fight desperately, and to die predictably. Mara moved through the same areas, unseen. She did not run. She did not hide without purpose. Every step she took was calculated. She watched from high ruins, riverbanks, and hidden caves. The hunters searched for her relentlessly, but she never made the same mistake twice. One hunter squad moved through an abandoned city. The buildings leaned at odd angles, shadows deep and dark. Sensors showed movement in multiple directions. The squad's leader, Larn, waved his team forward. Spread out. She cannot hide forever. The human will be caught. But Mara was already there. She crouched on a roof, her eyes scanning the street below. A simple trap, left from decades-old human machinery, waited. She pressed a small button. Below, a vehicle fell into a pit concealed by debris. One hunter disappeared inside, his armor glowing briefly before going dark. The rest of the squad stopped, confused. Their sensors scanned the pit. Nothing. They looked at each other. Mara did not need to attack directly. She made them fear every step. In another area, Mara intercepted supplies meant for the hunters. Small crates, carrying energy packs and weapons, were destroyed before the hunters could use them. One scout tried to warn the others, but before the message reached command, the scout vanished. The hunters began to realize they were being hunted. From orbit, Hale, the human officer observing the fight, noted every move. She had trained with Mara, but even she could not predict everything her friend would do. She is not running, Hale said. She is shaping them, making them fight on our terms. On the ground, Koro's second-in-command, Ralk, felt the first sting of doubt. They cannot fight like this. One human cannot do this alone. Koro watched the reports coming in. One landing team had been trapped in a canyon. Another had lost communications entirely. Mara moved too quickly, used too many tricks, and disappeared before the hunters could react. "Is it possible," Ralk asked, "that she is leading us somewhere?" Koro did not answer. Mara's attacks were precise, targeted, and carefully timed. Each hunter lost weakened their confidence, and that worried Koro. Confidence was the hunter's strength. Remove it, and even the most advanced weapons became useless. Mara moved through a destroyed urban area next. She found a group of hunters stationed near a collapsed skyscraper. They were confident at first, laughing at how weak humans were. Mara waited until night. The hunters set up sensors around the area, believing the darkness would help them. Mara used the darkness to her advantage. She pressed another small device she carried. Energy from nearby power lines surged, sending sparks and lights across the streets. Hunter sensors overloaded. They fired blindly. The beams burned through walls, but Mara was gone. One hunter ran into the ruins of a building, thinking he had her trapped. The building's support beams were weak. Mara had chosen this place intentionally. As he ran, the building shifted. Dust and stone fell, crushing him completely. Koro watched from orbit. "Every move we make, she knows it first," he said. "She predicts everything." The hunter's arrogance began to fade. They had never faced an opponent like Mara. On every world they had visited, the prey ran or fought blindly. Mara did not. She forced them into traps they could not see, always just out of reach, always one step ahead. In another desert area, Mara waited near an old human military bunker. She had watched the hunters' patrols for hours. They moved with precision, scanning for energy signatures. Mara moved through the sand silently, avoiding sensors. One hunter, sensing movement, turned to shoot. Mara was gone before the trigger was pulled. The hunter's gun hit a rock, sending a small explosion back at him. The hunters were beginning to argue among themselves. Some suggested retreat. Some demanded more firepower. Ralk wanted to continue. "We cannot stop. If we do, the human wins." Koro remained quiet. "No, we will continue. We will not fail." Mara was changing the rules of the hunt. She was not just avoiding capture. She was teaching the hunters something. Fear. Patience. Uncertainty. In the forested hills of a northern continent, Mara set another trap. She waited until two hunters moved into a narrow pass. Using small devices and simple technology, she created sounds and flashes that made the hunters believe they were surrounded. Their scanners went wild. They fired into the hills, hitting nothing. Mara waited silently above, observing. When they moved again, thinking they had escaped, she cut off their path. By the time the humans in command rooms heard the transmissions, the hunters were trapped in confusion. Some fired at shadows, others called for retreat, but their comms were jammed by Mara's devices. Koro's voice finally came through. "Stop underestimating her. Every time we assume, we are wrong." The hunters realized their advantage in technology was meaningless against someone who understood the terrain, patience, and psychology. Mara's attacks were not strong, but clever. She knew where they felt safe and destroyed that safety. In the mountains, a hunter named Vren tried to flank Mara. He moved quietly along a ridge, thinking she could not see him. Mara anticipated this. She had left small sensors, almost invisible, that picked up his movement. She pressed another device. Rock shifted and rolled toward him. He leapt, avoiding some, but one crushed his armor. He barely survived, retreating with a broken leg. By midday, hunters were regrouping. Their leader, Koro, called them back to their ships. Every team had losses. Confidence was falling. Hunger for victory was replaced by suspicion and fear. Mara rested briefly on a cliff above the hunters' main encampment. She did not celebrate. She did not relax. She studied their movements, noting patterns and weaknesses. The hunters were trained to kill, but Mara was trained to survive, to adapt, and to teach. Hale watched from orbit. "She is shaping them," she said again. "We cannot tell her what to do. She already knows." The hunters moved again, desperate to regain control. Koro instructed them to use force to attack cities and towns to lure Mara out. Mara anticipated this. Civilians were evacuated quietly. Nothing was left for the hunters to exploit. At night, Mara struck again. Small patrols found themselves surrounded by illusions and minor traps that caused confusion. Weapons misfired, sensors glitched, communications failed. The hunters began to fear their own technology. Rauk approached Koro. "This is different. She is not like anything we have fought before." Koro did not answer immediately. He studied the map of Earth, showing all hunter movements and Mara's possible locations. She had been everywhere, yet nowhere at the same time. Every loss they suffered was orchestrated. Every fear was deliberate. Koro finally said, "We underestimated humans. Not their weapons. Not their ships. Their resolve. This one human is more dangerous than armies we have destroyed." Mara watched the hunters from the shadows of a ruined fortress. She knew they would try something bigger next. They would not stop until they thought they had her trapped. She would make them think they were winning before showing them their mistake. As the night fell, she moved again. Every step calculated. Every trap planned. Every hunter uncertain of what would happen next. Earth was alive in her hands. The hunters were beginning to realize that they were not hunting. They were being hunted. By the end of the night, one full squad of elite hunters had vanished. Koro's communications showed only static where their reports should have been. Mara's pattern was clear. She struck, disappeared, and moved again. Earth's command room was silent. No one spoke of victory or failure. They watched the reports and waited. Mara was doing more than surviving. She was shaping the hunters' perception, teaching them fear, patience, and doubt. The galaxy's elite hunters had arrived, thinking Earth would be easy. They had not considered a single human could turn the planet into a trap. Mara had done it quietly, precisely, and without a sound, and as the first light of the new day touched the planet, Mara was already moving. The hunters had no idea what awaited them next. Every step they took, every strategy they tried, Mara had already accounted for. She was patient, she was clever, and she was unstoppable. For the first time, Earth was not waiting to fight. Earth was hunting. The hunters did not yet understand it, but the hunt had changed forever. The hunters were growing restless. What had begun as a confident mission, a demonstration of their unmatched skill, was now turning into confusion and fear. Koro's fleet had spread across continents, but Mara remained unseen, moving like a shadow that could not be touched. Every attempt to corner her failed. Every attack ended with a human loss, often in ways the hunters could not explain. In a ruined city near the coast, a squad of hunters moved cautiously through collapsed streets. Buildings leaned precariously, their skeletal frames casting long shadows in the fading sun. The squad's leader, Vren, tapped a console on his wrist. Sensors show her presence nearby. She must be hiding in these ruins. We cannot waste more time. Vren shook his head. We have already lost 2 squads here. We proceed carefully. But Mara did not hide. She had waited for them. From the roof of a half-collapsed building, she watched the hunters enter a narrow alley. Her device, a simple-looking box the size of a human hand, sent a pulse through the ground. Energy from old pipelines and buried machinery exploded in controlled bursts. Dust and metal fell from above, forcing the hunters to scatter. Vren shouted orders, but his squad was already in chaos. One hunter was pinned under rubble, and another's armor was damaged by the energy surges. Mara moved silently along the rooftops, unseen and untouched. She pressed another button, sending a small drone into the alley. It emitted a high-pitched sound that made the hunters' sensors overload. In moments they could not tell where she was, and panic spread through the squad. Above the city, Koro's observation deck received the reports. He watched as screens flashed red. One squad lost contact entirely. Another was sending fragmented messages. He clenched his fists. They cannot keep outsmarting us, he said. She is one human. She cannot be this precise. Rauk, his second-in-command, shook his head. She is using patience, Koro. She waits, observes, and then strikes. She knows the terrain better than we do. Our weapons do not help when the hunter becomes the hunted. He already knew this was true. Mara's movements were not random. She was leading the hunters into traps they could not see, teaching them doubt and fear with every step. In the mountains far north, another hunter group tried a different approach. They set up motion sensors and used drones to scan large areas, hoping to find Mara before she could set another trap. The drones moved steadily, sending live feeds back to the hunters. Then the first drone went silent. Its signal cut off. The second followed. And the third, Mara had disabled them. She had been watching all along. Using a combination of old human tech and improvised devices, she had jammed their signals. The hunters were blind. Every move they made was uncertain, every step dangerous. In the desert, Mara waited near an abandoned military outpost. Supplies intended for the hunters were stored here, but she destroyed them before the hunters arrived. When the squad landed, they expected to resupply. Instead, they found nothing. No weapons, no energy packs, only silence and the oppressive heat of the desert. One hunter, Ral, shouted in frustration. "They are mocking us. One human is mocking elite hunters," Mara observed from a distant ridge. Did not need to yell, did not need to fight directly. The hunter's own fear did the work for her. They were beginning to doubt themselves, their weapons, and their training. In orbit, Hale, the human officer, monitored Mara's actions. She could see the hunters becoming less coordinated, more nervous. "She is not just surviving," Hale said. "She is teaching them a lesson. They are learning fear, but from us, from her." Around a makeshift camp, they argued quietly. Vren spoke. "We cannot chase her blindly. Every move we make, she is ready. Every path we take, she has already planned for us." Koro's voice cut through their calms. "We will not fail. The hunt continues, but we must adapt. Mara is clever, but even clever humans make mistakes." They decided to set a trap. Hunters spread across a valley with walls on either side, expecting Mara to move through. They activated all sensors and weapons, hoping to catch her as she passed. Mara had expected this. She led the hunters into the valley, but used the terrain to her advantage. Hidden pits, old tunnels, and collapsing cliffs forced the hunters to stop repeatedly. Their formation broke. Confusion spread. Mara struck from above, using small explosions and sonic devices to disorient them further. One hunter tried to retreat, but another blocked the way, thinking they had surrounded Mara. Miscommunication caused them to fire on each other. Armor shattered. Weapons malfunctioned. Mara was still nowhere to be seen. Koro watched the feeds in frustration. "She is too fast. She is too clever. She is turning every weakness against us." Ralk approached him. "She is human, Koro. That is why. She understands unpredictability. She adapts. That is our mistake. We assumed superiority." Mara rested briefly in the shadow of a cliff. Her breathing was calm. Her arm was sore, but she had managed to confuse and trap the hunters again. She studied their movements and planned her next attack. The hunters attempted to coordinate a large strike, hoping to corner her in a canyon with multiple exits. Koro sent squads to cut all possible routes. They activated aerial drones, sensors, and heavy artillery. Every hunter moved with precise steps, thinking this time they would succeed. Mara anticipated everything. She used the canyon's natural twists and turns, the debris from centuries-old rock slides, and small human-made devices to block paths and disorient the hunters. Energy pulses caused misfires. Falling rocks separated squads. Hunters fell into hidden pits and traps. By the end of the day, 2 squads had vanished completely. Only fragments of communication remained. Fear began to spread through the remaining hunters. For the first time, some considered retreat. Ralk argued against it. "If we retreat now, she wins completely. We must continue. We must adapt like she has adapted to us." Koro remained silent. He knew retreat was impossible. The galaxy expected results. Failure was not an option. Yet he could not deny what he was seeing. Mara, one human, had managed to inflict loss, confusion, and fear on the elite hunters. At night, Mara moved again. She did not celebrate. She did not rest for long. She set new traps, using sensors, small devices, and knowledge of the hunter's behavior. She waited patiently, knowing that the next day would bring another attempt to corner her. The hunters were beginning to understand a truth they had never faced before. They were not the hunters in this scenario. Earth had sent one person to show them that the hunter could become the hunted. In orbit, Hale watched silently. "She is not just surviving. She is changing the rules of engagement," she said. Across Earth, the hunters moved cautiously, fear creeping into every decision. Mara had forced them to doubt their training, their instincts, and their technology. Every step they took was now measured, careful, uncertain. Mara's shadow moved through the ruins and deserts and mountains again. Every device she placed, every pitfall she created, every small explosion was deliberate. The hunters believed they were advancing, but in reality, they were walking into lessons designed by one human. By the end of the second day, Koro called a meeting with his remaining commanders. "She is human," he said slowly, "and yet she has done what entire armies could not. We cannot ignore this. Every move must be precise. We cannot underestimate her again." Ralk nodded. "She is clever, patient, and fearless. She knows the terrain, the traps, and even our expectations. We cannot fight her like we fight others. Koro's jaw tightened. Then we change the rules. She will not predict everything next time. But Mara had already anticipated the hunter's plan. She moved through forests, mountains, and ruins, staying always one step ahead. Every attack they made, every trap they set, she countered before they could strike. By nightfall, the hunters had lost another squad. Koro's fleet in orbit showed frustration, fear, and exhaustion. One human had turned the elite hunter's mission into chaos. Mara had not fired a single heavy weapon. She had not called for reinforcements. She had simply used patience, intelligence, and knowledge of the hunter's behavior to destroy confidence. Mara rested briefly, looking at the stars. The hunters were powerful, but she knew their strength could be turned against them. Each mistake they made, each assumption they carried, she used to her advantage. Earth was not just surviving. Earth was teaching a lesson that the galaxy would remember. Mara, one human, had begun to reshape the hunt, and the hunters had yet to realize the full danger of what they faced. By the end of this part, the hunters were beginning to fear not just defeat, but the unpredictability of humans. Mara was not just running, she was leading, shaping, and teaching. The hunt had changed. The hunter had become the hunted. And the next day would prove it again. The hunters were no longer laughing. Their arrogance, so strong when they arrived, had been replaced by tension and doubt. Every squad that moved across Earth's surface risked disappearing without a trace. Mara had shown them that human ingenuity, patience, and knowledge of terrain could defeat even the most advanced weapons. Koro gathered his commanders on the flagship. The fleet hovered above Earth like a dark cloud, scanning constantly. "We cannot allow this human to control the hunt," he said. "She is forcing mistakes we cannot afford. Every loss weakens our credibility across the galaxy." Ralk, pacing beside him, shook his head. "She is not just surviving, she is shaping us. We fight as hunters, but she is forcing fear, confusion, and doubt into our ranks. Our strength is in confidence. She has taken that from us." Koro turned toward the window, watching the small blue planet below. "Then we confront her directly. No more tricks. No more chasing shadows. We will find her, corner her, and end this. Today, she will fight us on our terms." On the ground, Mara had moved again, this time to a region that had once been a human military testing site. The ruins were filled with tunnels, underground bunkers, and old devices that could be adapted for her traps. She did not rush. She studied the hunters' movements carefully. Every step they took revealed patterns, weaknesses, and assumptions she could use. Hunters spread across the area, moving in precise formations. They had learned some caution, but they still underestimated her. Mara struck first by using their expectations against them. She triggered small collapses in the tunnels, forcing hunters to split into separate groups. Communications were jammed by her devices, so coordination failed. Above, Koro monitored every feed. 2 squads had disappeared from his view within minutes. Mara was moving faster than they could track, using old structures and human ingenuity. He clenched his fists. "Prepare for full assault. All units, converge, find her, or be destroyed." The hunters advanced carefully, but Mara had already predicted their movements. She created diversions by activating old security turrets, setting off explosions in distant locations, and leaving behind evidence of movement that was not hers. The hunters followed these illusions, falling into traps she had laid long before. In the desert, Mara led a group of hunters into a canyon. Rocks hung precariously above, and energy sensors from their suits indicated no danger. They proceeded, confident that the human could not possibly anticipate their careful planning. Mara pressed a small device, sending vibrations through the canyon walls. Rocks shifted, blocked exits, and created noise that disoriented the hunters. In moments, one squad was trapped at the bottom, another cut off by a falling wall. Mara had forced them into positions where even their weapons were useless. Koro's voice echoed through the remaining hunters' comms. "Do not let her divide us. Move as one. Do not lose discipline." But discipline was failing. Fear had taken root. Hunters who had never doubted themselves now questioned every step. Mara's strategy was simple but effective. She did not need to overpower them. She needed only to control their perception, make them hesitate, and exploit that hesitation. From orbit, Hale watched Mara's movements with awe. "She is turning every expectation against them," she said quietly. "They have strength, weapons, and skill, but they cannot fight someone who fights the mind as well as the body. Mara is teaching them fear." In the mountains, another hunter group attempted a flanking maneuver. They thought they had cornered Mara between cliffs and canyons. Mara, however, had already moved through hidden tunnels. underground passages that had been abandoned for decades. When the hunters fired, they hit walls. When they moved, they were misled by traps and illusions she had created. Vren, the squad leader, shouted in frustration. "We cannot win like this. One human cannot control the battlefield." But Mara was everywhere. She did not need to fight directly. Each time the hunters thought they had her, she had already planned her escape or attack. One hunter tried to pursue her alone and triggered a pit hidden under sand. The soldier fell, disappearing from sight, leaving only equipment behind. Drop teams from orbit, combined firepower, and concentrated squads were dispatched to corner Mara. Every hunter had orders, every weapon ready. They believed that sheer numbers and overwhelming firepower would finally end her. Mara anticipated this too. She moved to a ruined city near the coast, using the broken infrastructure as her advantage. She set traps at intersections, created diversions using old energy systems, and allowed hunters to believe they were winning small battles. Each minor victory for them was a setup for a larger failure. Hunters entered the city cautiously. Mara struck indirectly. One squad was ambushed by collapsing walls. Another was caught in energy traps that overloaded their suits. Communications failed, and the hunters began turning on each other by mistake. Every time Koro tried to adjust strategy from orbit, Mara's interference nullified it. The remaining hunters regrouped in panic. Their confidence shattered, they realized that Mara had not just survived. They were losing control of the hunt entirely. Koro's voice was tight with frustration. "Concentrate. All units together. Find her and end this now." Mara moved silently along the rooftops. She did not need to shout or fire a major weapon. Her presence was already causing chaos. Every movement she made forced the hunters to reconsider every step, every assumption, every plan. She was teaching patience, fear, and uncertainty, things no elite hunter had ever experienced before. By evening, half the landing squads had been neutralized or lost. Koro could see the losses in real time. He frowned. This was not just failure. It was humiliation. The galaxy expected his fleet to dominate Earth, and now one human had turned them into fools. Mara rested briefly in a collapsed building. Breathing was steady. Her arm was sore from minor injuries, but she had avoided every major confrontation. She studied the hunters' remaining movements and planned the next stage. She had learned enough about their tactics to know how to manipulate them further. The hunters, desperate to regain control, decided to broadcast threats. They sent signals over every channel, warning Mara to surrender. They taunted her, claiming the hunt would end with her capture. Mara intercepted the broadcasts and smiled. She replied with footage of previous hunter mistakes combined with old human battle imagery and sent it back to their screens. The hunters froze. Confusion and fear spread as they watched. Every misstep they had made, every squad lost, was now evident. Mara had used their own technology and expectations to make them doubt themselves further. Koro clenched his fists. "She is turning our strengths against us. Oh, we cannot allow this." The remaining hunters attempted a direct confrontation near a mountainous region. They set up traps, sensors, and weapons, hoping to finally corner Mara. She entered the area, appearing in full view for the first time. Her eyes were calm, her movements deliberate. She did not attack immediately. Instead, she walked openly, forcing the hunters to make the first move. They fired. Energy beams cut through the air, hitting walls and debris. Mara moved with precision, avoiding every strike. Small explosions and traps she had prepared caused panic. Hunters fell into hidden pits, misfired, and miscommunicated. One by one, the hunters realized that their skills and technology were useless against someone who thought differently, who used fear, patience, and intelligence as weapons. Mara was not a soldier. She was a strategist, a hunter of hunters. By the end of the battle, only a fraction of the hunter squads remained intact. Koro's fleet in orbit could do nothing to change the outcome. Mara had forced the hunters to fight on her terms, controlling every step, every decision, every movement. On the ground, Mara paused and looked at the horizon. The hunters were scattered, weakened, and disoriented. She had not needed to use major weapons or reinforcements. One human had turned the hunt into chaos, showing the galaxy the power of patience, intelligence, and resolve. From orbit, Hale observed silently. "She has done more than survive," she said. "She has won without a fight." They would plan again. They would return, stronger and smarter. But Mara had proven something the galaxy had not expected. Earth did not surrender. Earth did not run. And one human could change the outcome of an entire hunt. As night fell, Mara moved again, disappearing into the mountains. She was patient. She was careful. And she was ready for whatever the hunters would attempt next. The galaxy was watching. The elite hunters were shaken, and Earth had begun to show its true strength. The hunters were quiet now. What had begun as a confident mission to Earth had turned into something no one had expected. The elite hunters, feared across the galaxy, were forced to admit something that went against everything they believed. One human, one woman, had outsmarted them, manipulated them, and defeated them without ever firing the heaviest weapons or calling for reinforcements. Mara had shown them that strength alone did not win battles. Intelligence, patience, and resolve could. Koro gathered the remaining hunters on the flagship. The mood was tense, almost fearful. The crew that had laughed at Earth now sat silent, staring at screens showing the scattered remnants of their squads. We cannot fight her like we fight other species, Relk said. She does not act like prey. She does not fear us in the way they all do. Every move we make, she is prepared. Every step we take, she knows. Koro rubbed his forehead. She is not just a human, he said quietly. She is the embodiment of our mistakes. We underestimated intelligence, and now we face the consequences. She had rested briefly, tended to minor injuries, and reviewed the patterns of the hunters' remaining movements. She knew they would attempt one final push, and she prepared accordingly. Traps were placed in abandoned cities, deserts, and forests. Old tunnels, hidden pits, and simple devices that could be improvised became her tools. She needed no heavy weapons. She needed only strategy, patience, and understanding of the hunter's behavior. The remaining squads moved cautiously, trying to coordinate for one final assault. Koro had ordered them to converge on a single location, believing that overwhelming numbers could corner her. They landed in a ruined industrial zone, stretching across wide streets, collapsed factories, and broken machinery. The hunters assumed this terrain would give them an advantage. Mara had chosen it for a different reason. She moved silently above their path, unseen. Using long-abandoned conveyor systems, scaffolding, and hidden cables, she forced the hunters to split into separate groups. Communications were jammed at key moments, and their coordination faltered. Hunters became uncertain, their confidence eroding with every passing minute. Vren, leading one squad, shouted in frustration. She cannot be everywhere at once. This is impossible. Rahl, another squad leader, muttered. She is not trying to be everywhere. She is using patience. We move, she predicts. We stop. She forces us to guess. Koro watched from orbit. Concentrate fire. Use every weapon we have. Do not underestimate her. But Mara had anticipated this. She had created diversions, false paths, and illusions that caused the hunters to misfire and miscommunicate. Small collapses, bursts of energy, and hidden pits created chaos among the hunters. They began to doubt every decision, every assumption, every plan. Ale, observant from the human command station in orbit, whispered to herself, She is not just surviving. She is teaching them something they have never known. Fear, doubt, patience. They cannot fight her on their terms because they do not understand her rules. The hunters attempted to regroup in the central industrial area, hoping to combine their forces. Mara allowed them to think they were winning minor victories, leading them into narrow corridors where she had prepared traps. Hidden pits, collapses, and misfiring weapons caused them to lose several more hunters. Koro's voice came through the remaining comm channels. Do not underestimate her. Every move must be deliberate. We cannot allow her to control the hunt. But Mara already had. Every action, every hesitation, every assumption the hunters made had been anticipated and countered. She moved quietly through shadows, rooftops, and abandoned tunnels, always one step ahead. The hunters attempted one final maneuver. A concentrated strike using all remaining squads to force her into a corner. They coordinated from orbit and ground, using aerial drones, sensors, and weapons of maximum strength. The plan seemed perfect. They would trap her in a canyon, flanked by mountains on either side, with exits blocked and sensors ready. Mara entered the canyon with calm precision. She allowed the hunters to see her, appearing in the open for the first time in a deliberate move. Her eyes were steady, her movements confident. The hunters fired first, cutting the canyon walls with energy beams. Mara dodged with fluid motion, disappearing from their sight and reappearing where they least expected. The traps she had prepared activated. Rocks tumbled from above, pits opened beneath the hunters' feet, and hidden devices sent disorienting pulses through their suits. Communication errors spread panic. Hunters fired at shadows and misfired at each other. They tried to converge, but Mara had already cut off all escape routes, forcing confusion. Boros fleet in orbit watched helplessly. The hunters had the advantage in numbers, weapons, and technology, but Mara's understanding of tactics and human ingenuity had nullified all of it. Confidence, the core of the hunter's strength, had been destroyed. One hunter attempted to flee the canyon, but found herself blocked by another trap Mara had left. Panic took over. The remaining hunters realized that victory was impossible. They were not fighting a human soldier. They were being hunted, manipulated, and defeated by someone who understood fear, patience, and strategy. Mara paused on a rocky outcrop, watching the chaos unfold. She did not shout or attack directly. She had done her work. The hunters had fallen into the patterns she had designed. They had learned doubt and caution, and their arrogance had been shattered. Hale observed silently from orbit. She has done what no one expected. One human has forced the elite hunters to fail. She has proven the galaxy wrong about Earth. The hunters attempted to regroup once more, but the momentum was gone. Every squad was weakened, every plan disrupted. Mara moved silently away from the canyon, leaving behind only confusion and destruction. Cora's voice came over the comm one final time, tight with frustration and disbelief. Fall back, retreat. We regroup and reconsider. The remaining hunters did as ordered. Ships lifted from the ground, shields glowing, engines burning. They would return to their fleet, battered and uncertain. One ship moved faster than the rest, escaping the planet entirely. Inside, a hunter transmitted a warning to the galaxy. Earth was not prey. Earth was forbidden. Mara watched the retreat from a distant ridge. She did not celebrate. She did not call herself a hero. She knew the galaxy would remember this day and others would come. Mara would be ready. On Earth, Human Command watched silently. Mara returned to safety, tending to minor injuries and reviewing every movement from the hunt. She had survived, defeated elite hunters, and shown that humans could turn a hunt against the hunters. The galaxy had seen something unexpected. A single human had outsmarted the elite hunters, destroyed confidence, and survived against impossible odds. Earth's status changed overnight. No longer seen as a weak planet, it was now a world not to be challenged lightly. Mara stood looking at the stars. She knew more would come. Other hunters, stronger and smarter, would test Earth again. But she also knew that one human, using intelligence, patience, and resolve, could make the difference. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Earth did not send armies first. Earth sent people who could win when the odds seemed impossible. Mara had proven that lesson with every step she took, every trap she set, and every hunter she defeated. The hunters had arrived to conquer. They would leave with fear, doubt, and a new understanding. Earth had sent her, and she had hunted them, and the galaxy would never forget it.